Brotherhood's End, Invasion of Tarkir, Lithomantic Barrage, or in black, you get your obvious picks there. Point being, I think we might have a monster on our hands with Jeskai Dragons moving forward, or other builds of Jeskai moving forward, because it has access to this incredibly cheap, efficient removal and the best engines that are left in the format, with Wedding Announcement, Wandering Emperor, etc.
I certainly like Jeskai Dragons. I know you've seen me use it on stream and in the Streamer Showdown, and I'm very much in love with it. I'm going to have to shift around and figure out. A question got raised. I think Griffin Rider was the one to question. You agreed, but do we need more pieces that are on the offensive? What's the balance of offensive mid-range pieces like Wedding Announcement, things like it, in the battle cards versus counter spells?
Especially like considering I'm maining the enchant deck right now, I have plenty of answers to take away their threats. As Darkstream was pointing out, I mean, there are multiple exile-based answers for the cheap right now.
There's 2 versions of mono white control out there. And then there's also like a token mono white deck that's back. That was like a tier 2 deck for a while there. Have you encountered mono white? Do we think it's got a dominant position? I know we were just talking about Jeskai Dragons. We're leaning more towards like a tempo mid-range thing being the dominant deck in the meta, but mono white, is it back? I don't see it in the top 4 of the most used decks, but it does have a high win rate. What do you think?
I think that out of the decks that I am currently facing on ladder, it does give me, I won't say the most trouble, but it does give me a little bit of trouble. But then again, like I'm very susceptible with the main deck that I play, I'm very susceptible to board wipes. Which mono white has plenty of in Farewell, in Sunfall, in White Sun's Twilight. I mean, take your pick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's I was pointing out to my viewers the other day, between Depopulate and then Sunfall and then White Suns. I mean, you can Farewell. You can go 4, 5, 6, 7 in mono white with board wipes and different flavors and different kinds. And
I think.
go ahead.
Sorry. I think that the white. I don't remember the name of the spell. The white word. The white that exiles all creatures and gives you tokens for like the incubate. An incubate token of the value of the creatures you have killed.
Sunfall.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sunfall.
I think that is the card that is making mono white very strong as a control deck.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the data now for our. We can all take a look at it, but and some of you have access to like untapped data as well if you want to share your insights. But based on what I'm looking at here, so yeah, it's still the same top 4 based on the last 3 days of data. Esper Legends, Mono Blue, Mono Red, Selesnya Enchantments. Still surprised to see Selesnya Enchantments up there. Also, maybe not. I know it's been commented off camera that maybe people don't know exactly what to play right now, and that can explain for the wide variety of decks in the meta. That being said, maybe none of these are super dominant, except for, I would say, Esper Legends and then Mono Red, which are ubiquitous in every standard Mono Red.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's see. If I scroll down a little bit, we've got the 2 different builds. There's a mono white soldiers. I didn't think about that. That does exist. Story soldiers, of course, more play than that. What's in the average mono? According to, so when I pull it up, okay, it's that exile-based removal, lay down arms, 4 ambitious farmhands, 3 invasion of Gobikin. Gobikin, that has become, I think, like just a mainstream card right now, mono white staple. Ossification, Spirited Companion, Wedding Announcement, of course, Wedding Announcement. 1 Restoration of Iganju. I think that's pretty standard across mono white control. I'm seeing Anointed Peacekeeper. I'm seeing Wandering Emperor, Sarah Paragon, AO. Then 3 Steel Seraph, 1 Eternal Wanderer top end. Not seeing Sanctuary. So, yeah. two directions. I think it's safe to say, and I'll let you guys comment on this in a second. But I think there's two. It's safe to say there are two directions that people are going in with Standard right now. Back to things that worked 4 or 5 months ago. You know, we were talking earlier about Mono Black, and maybe somebody can bring up if they have a list. I wish Paradaba were here. Loving the Mono Black aggro. I'm working on one. But they're either going back to things that worked 4 or 5 months ago, or they're moving forward to just like building and brewing a little bit, which is what I prefer to do. What are you guys' experience? And we'll go one by one. I want to get John Ramos in on this. John Ramos, do you play Standard right now? Actually, have you? I know you've been dabbling in Historic.
I haven't touched Standard since the bans, but there have been a couple of. I was gonna touch it, but I just haven't. I haven't had the time to. I've been delving into Historic by a lot. I've played like close to 35, 40, 50 matches, somewhere in there already in Historic. But for Standard, right after the Rakdos, or right before the ban, when they had the PT, I had made the case that the majority of the Rakdos decks, or the red or the black decks or whatever, they were all on like 3 to 4 Go for the Throats, and maybe 1 Abrade, and maybe a second in the sideboard. After that tourney, I had suggested that Mono White needs to basically go back to the original list that started before they went to the Eternal Wanderer and basically went bigger. And that's with Anointed Peacekeepers and Steel Seraphs, where you get your Ambitious Farmhand, and then you drop Anointed Peacekeeper, keep them off a sweeper, keep them off removal, make it cost $1 billion. And then you play Steel Seraph, and you just like basically attack for like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the air, like on turn 4, turn 5. And with Anointed Peacekeeper and all the stuff, the majority of your stuff has Vigilance. So you're not getting oppressed by other Wandering Emperors, and you're playing the best card that you have in Wedding Announcement. So basically your threes are better than everybody else's. And I was going to put that back together and start playing it on Standard. And then I found a different deck. I first saw it from Delmo on Twitter, where they went, I don't know, some 65% with mono green, Awaken the Woods, Nissa, and just all creature ramp stuff. So I want to try that, because I love me some Nissa and some Awaken the Woods and some Temporary Stompers. That's my type of Magic. Go big or go home.
Oh yeah, we can talk about that. That's where I've been going, is mono green.
I don't know if Vorinclex is the thing, and there's a couple of cards in there that I question, but the majority of the cards in there make a lot of sense. And the threes, and this is what I was gonna do, but they didn't go the full 4. They did have the 4 Nissas, the 3-mana Nissa with the landfall, and they were on the 2 Titan of Industries. I was gonna go to 4, because you got ways to, Field of Ruins and the the sack lands, not the fetches, the sack lands that you get basically 2 lands, basic or whatever, and you just search for Titan of Industries, stuff like that. So those were the 2 things that I was going to try initially once the ban happened, but Historic has just been really, really fun.
Okay. We'll actually get a chance to talk more about Historic. I do want you to kind of help us deep dive into what's getting some play in there, what you're seeing from that perspective. Briefly to touch on Standard mono green, I've been building that one. I'm going to be playing that one actually after this live recording. I'm going to be doing some gameplay footage. I've gone in the direction of stepping off of Nissa, the new 4-drop Nissa, or 3-drop Nissa, sorry, and might be a 4, I can't remember. Anyway, I took her out of the deck.
3-drop.
3-drop. I took her out of the deck. I took the Titan of Industry out of the deck. And I decided to go more towards what I was doing in Gruul, which I think works better in mono green, which is Topiary into Invasion of Zendikar, and then trying to ramp into Form the Festival. So then it just becomes a question of, like, what sort of 5 drops do you from there. That's what I've been messing with and seeing the highest win rate with Platinum right. But that might be wishful thinking, right? Like I would really love for a creature deck to be in the tier 1 status. But I really just don't know. Really just don't. I think the closest thing you get, Esper Legends, and arguably, I don't know. Arguably, there's different builds of that one. Darkstream, are you available to talk about this one? I wanted to ask you. I know you've been making some shifts and looking at that deck back and forth. How do you feel about Thopterix? How do you feel about the 2-drop slot in that deck? Are you still using Thalia? I have a couple of questions. What's your take on Esper Legends?
I haven't seen a build I love yet. I think the closest I've seen are people are starting to pick up that Toulouse is worth looking at. I think the critical piece people are missing is that Gix is good in Esper Legends. And there's a love affair with going on Adeline, Rafine, and Toulouse and eschewing Gix entirely. But I do think Gix merits heavy consideration at this point, considering how it also snowballs your advantage and ability to close out games.
Okay. I like Gix. I have I sort of split Adeline and Gix, 2 of Adeline, 2 of Gix. Adeline works so well with Rafine, it's hard to say no to that. Toulouse, I see a copy in there. How do you feel about it? I might go back to it. I originally had dropped it when Rakdos and Grixis sort of did really well in that PT. But I might go back to it. I mean, it really is kind of like a new hand in a can, as has been said about it before.
Here's the issue right now with that and with AO. Both are reliant upon death triggers, and White has all of its removal in exile. And I think the best decks right now are using White-based removal, whether it's Leyline, Ossification, Lay Down Arms, Sunfall, Farewell, Wandering Emperor. I mean, these are 6 tier 1 cards that fit into at least 4 decks that people are utilizing, which means that Gix is going to be a stronger choice because it doesn't rely on a death trigger to give you card advantage.
Very plainly put. Thank you. Yeah. That just goes right back to mono white control being something that we need to keep our eye on. Even I think mono white is naturally Esper Legends' biggest opponent right now on ladder. For that reason, so many of the strategies, like I have one of Ratadrabic, and if what you're saying is true, then I really need to take a look at that as well. Maybe move towards another Urtai in the main. I don't know. I'm still looking at this list, still thinking about all the possibilities with it. But it's honestly the one that if there's a tournament, tomorrow, that's the one.
I think at this point, if I'm going to play another tournament, like I just played one, just got done, played Mono Black, enjoyed it. But if I'm going to play a tournament tomorrow, I would pick up the list from the Pizza Box Open that went 8-0 for Jeskai Dragons, and I'd tune it up about three or four slots, and I'd run that because it's got so many angles, and it does such a good job of forcing everybody into that war of attrition they don't want to fight, and having better engines than literally every other deck I've seen.
Yeah, you like the Chrome Host Seed Shark here? I was thinking about that, slotting that in. How do you feel about it?
So I actually talked with after I finished round 1 and lost to the individual who took the 8-0 slot and is currently playing in the quarterfinals as we record this. I spoke with them at length about the build, and they're like, they straight up like built this on a brew and did not tune it. So we agreed that like Chrome Host Seed Shark, it might be good. We need more testing. The same kind of goes for that one invasion of Gobakon. I don't know that that's correct for this list, nor the invasion of New Phyrexia in the main. So there are some slots that can move. It needs more testing. That's really where we're at with the list. Is it just needs more testing to figure it out, because Seed Shark has a tension point with the lack of ways to get those activations out of those triggered abilities because of how much of the curve is still dragons once you get up the side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the same tension point that I have in my build with you're using Seed Shark the same way I'm trying to use Maniform Hellkite to create more power on the field with non-creature spells. And that's the tension point that I'm running into with that card. I sort of liked it because I was trying to still use the Sarkin from Aftermath, 2 copies. When that becomes a Maniform Hellkite, and then you have one on the field, and then it becomes, you get double the illusion tokens, you can kind of almost win in that turn sometimes. But yeah, it's a tension point in the deck.
What I do like about it is it's another card that comes down and says, "Kill me or deal with the consequences." And I really like the positioning of that in a Dragons deck where you have so many must answer threats that sometimes all you're really doing with it is putting it out there and forcing them to go for the throat it so that you then have the ability to play out the rest of your threats. And if they don't have the go for the throat, it's kind of like the blue Shieldred in a way. Like if they don't answer it and you're playing a deck that has enough ways to trigger that ability, you're going to take over the game quickly. So perhaps it merits the inclusion on that alone. I'm not 100% sure. I still need to mess with it quite a bit more.
Thank you for that. Luis, what are you playing currently? Pattern standard.
I'm playing historic.
Okay, let's go ahead and shift gears.
Um,
Actually, this is a good chance to shift over. We keep wanting to talk about historic. We might as well.
I'm sorry, that was weird. Hey, you're playing standard. Like, what deck are you playing? I'm playing historic.
I love it. Luis, what are you playing in historic right now?
I'm playing first of all 3 decks. Well, 4 decks. It's is it Phoenix with the horrors, the one blue, one normal horrors that they turn up.
Thing in the eyes.
Thing in this, yes. And the other deck I'm playing is Nibmiset. I'm using Nibmiset Supreme as an extra card.
How are you doing?
And I'm playing Reanimation with Atraxa.
All right, so out of those, which is it sounds like you'd like to play the fun combo-y kind of stuff. Which of those is your favorite right now to play? Which of those is probably the most competitive?
The most competitive is at Phoenix. It can go off really, really strong, and with the thing on the ice, it's really good against goblins and aggro decks that relies on a lot of creatures like elves. Because when you turn the thing of the ice and you return all the creatures except the horrors, uh, it really makes your life a lot easier. And the one I like most is Nibmiset. I love five color decks.
I'm also a sucker for 5-color decks and territorial cavalry myself, so I understand.
Yeah, territorial cabo.
I like Thing in the Ice. For our readers at home who may not play historic, may not play Is It Phoenix. That's also a deck in historic and explorer. Thing in the Ice, 2 cost defender horror, ETBs with 4 ice counters on it, and then as you play instants and sorceries, you get to remove an ice counter. Thing in the Ice, and then once it has nothing, it transfers, which is a 7/8 Kraken horror creature. And then as soon as that happens, you get to return all non-horror. Everyone returns all non-horrors to their hand. So yeah, it's an impactful card and something I'm trying to make happen and explore that I think deserves some attention. Luis, what are your favorite spells to kind of make that happen? Do you have a game plan for making that happen?
Uh, the typical ones like Faithless Loot, Faithless. I'm sorry.
Faithful Saluting.
Yep. And the one of Alchemy. Let me check it out. I was using Consider for the surveil, but I changed it to Place It Together. It's
Yeah, talk to us about that card because I know alchemy players don't know.
okay.
I do like this one.
Place It Together is a sorcery that makes it a little less usable, but it starts with an intensity of 1. Whenever you use it, the main effect is like you draw a card. But whenever you use it, all the cards in your library and in your graveyard get 1 intensity extra. So when your intensity is 4, you get an extra turn. I have used it and I have won like 4 or 5 times because of the extra turn. It's not something that you can reliably think that it will happen, but I like to have that option that when the games tend to be longer
But yeah, I think thank you for pointing out that card because the intensity cards are a bit of a puzzle for me. I couldn't figure out whether they were really better than consider or anything else you could like opt you could put in that slot. But I have seen and I have lost against people who get the extra turn with that card. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that to our attention. Lieutenant Watts, you're known to play standard and historic a little bit. What are you playing right now out of either format?
In standard right now, I am playing your like set Selesnya enchant deck, the one we see on ladder every day, because it's just good. Like there's not a not good thing about it. It's resilient. It stands up against a lot of your aggro decks fairly well because it can remove their threats that they're trying to keep on the board. It becomes an aggro deck pretty quickly, especially with some of the variations that I've put into it. I've got one of. I'll actually just share my screen really quick. Hold on, let me do this. The pro streamer way.
I'll have you know.
I'll have you know, I am a YouTube content creator.
Do the 2K looks. All right, yeah. Talk to us about this particular. It might be optimal.
So it's got on your low end, it's got your Audacity, which is going to give you your trample as well as that +2/+0, so you can just run over the top of some of the smaller things, especially when you're targeting things like your where'd it go? Your Invasion of Theros, which will let me go and get Audacity, and then flip it over onto its backside there, where you get to draw a card every time an enchantment comes into the battlefield, as well as having life leak and indestructible if you control 3 or more. Great card. Lets you go find what you need. You can vacation real quick. If you need to get rid of something, you can pull out an Audacity if you're looking to get a little bit more power. Of course, your Generous Visitor for that +1/+1 counter that you can put anywhere you want. Michigos for not only the enchantment count, but as well as the first 2 phases can seal a game away for you, really, if it's played at the right time.
Yeah, we were talking about that card and the importance of it, like whether to have 2, 3, or even 4 copies. 4 might be too much. 2 and 3 seems like the perfect amount, right?
Yeah. I go with 2 just because like I can copy it with Calyx if I want to, or I can copy its trigger with Weaver if I want to. And it tends to show up. I'm not gonna say that it's an algorithm thing where because it has a low mana count, it tends to show up. But like I see it more often than not, even with it just being a 2-of in the deck. Spirited Companion for the draw, Kami of Transience for the power. I put a 1-of Roiling Earth in. It was kind of accidental at first, actually. It was a misclick, but after playing with it a few times, I like it. It's a 2-drop enchantment. It will pump everything else on the field when it comes out. But not only that, like every time I drop a land, I get to pump something. So I don't really have a reason not to play it. Roiling Earth, sorry, not Roiling Earth. Weaver of Harmony, again, enchantment creature, increases that enchantment count. Also lets me copy the activated or triggered ability of most of my enchantments in here. Jukai Naturalist for, tax evasion. Seal from Existence to deal with some of the bigger things. And also just to have another exile-based effect out there that is also an enchantment. Calyx, we all know what it does. We all love him. Considering putting a 3rd one in there and dropping one of the Spirited Companion just to have a 3rd one in there. Hallowed Haunting over Wedding Announcement, and I've played the deck both ways, and if I'm not mistaken, I even took Wedding Announcement out of my sideboard. I did. But Hallowed Haunting over the Wedding Announcement just because late game, when you're dropping 2, 3, 4 enchantments per turn, this can take a completely empty board on your side of the board and flip that board state to a point that unless they're holding a board wipe, you've won. They're not going to get past you because it grows with every spirit that comes into the battlefield as well. Elish Norn I have in there mainly for its passive ability, so that if they do want to attack me, either they have to pay life or they have to pay mana, and I don't really care which one you pay as long as you pay. Sacrifice 3 creatures can be easily met through either sacrificing your spirited companions if you want to lower that enchantment count, which generally you don't. I'm usually looking to sacrifice spirits that I've generated with Hallowed Haunting. But really, she's just there for that tax of you're going to pay 2 life or you're going to pay 1 mana if you want to hurt me. Mana base is not optimal, but it does get the job done. And then, of course, 2 more of Michigos in the sideboard in case I'm finding that I just need to go big or go home. Ossification again for that exile-based removal. Same thing with Realm Breakers. It's an enchantment that's basically just shuts down anything that they have out there. Doesn't get rid of it, which is an interesting point. So if it has triggered abilities, it'll still be able to have those abilities triggered, but it stops them from activating or attacking or blocking. Into the Trenches for a little bit of boost, as well as a one-time exile effect for 6 mana, actually 8, but you're really looking for that +1/+1. And I do have 4 of in the sideboard if I'm finding I just again need to go big or go home. Another copy of Seal from Existence, and then 2 of the Tribute to the World Tree. If I'm finding that I particularly need card draw, because a lot of the creatures in this deck will come in with 3 or more power if you have Hallowed Haunting out or a Calyx or where is it? The Weaver also boosts your other spirits, and then another Hallowed Haunting and another Elish Norn. Sideboard could probably use a bit of work. I do find the main deck to be very effective, though.
Thank you for the breakdown. I think this deck deserves a lot of attention. It is certainly one is winning on ladder and in tournament scene, and I like the idea of you already thinking about like alternate win cons, late game win cons, in case like the Roaring Earth. I saw it also has a really cool channel ability that allows you to pump up a land, like get in for the final points of damage type situation. So having those alternatives definitely seems like it would help. All right.
Yeah.
John Ramos, let's talk about Historic. What's going on in Historic? What are you seeing? What are you playing? Break it down for us.
All right, so I decided, with the help of Turtlebox, basically calling me out, saying that if you're going to be better, that you have to play all the formats, sans Alchemy, because me and that format don't get along. Although I'm pretty sure that Alchemy would probably be fine. But
yeah, now that you've played with some of the cards, it may be as bad.
Yeah. So the big thing. So before the what's it called? Before the seasonal reset, I was sitting in Diamond and testing for the Explorer Open, and then after I had my deck settled, I was like, well, I have a few days, so I'll just start early. And I messed with tokens. I messed with some Death Shadow. I messed with some combo. I messed with a lot of stuff that was like basically good, before all the good alchemy cards came out. And Historic has changed a lot since the last time that I played. The decks that you think are good are not. And the TLDR, if you don't take anything away from this for this next like 5-10 minutes, is this. There are 2 decks in this format. Crucius decks, and I grouped them all into one because they're basically the same deck. And Kethis. That's it. That's your format. Because every deck is running red, black, and other colors. So, for example, I posted on Twitter as a joke. It wasn't like a joke, but it was like me basically trolling or shit posting that there are virtually 2 decks, and it's Crucius and Kethis. That's it. And then Binary Soloist is like, yeah, but there's like 5+ Crucius decks, so you're gonna have to be more specific. No, I don't, because they're all running Crucius. All right. And And the reason is because Crucius is just this little 3/3 legendary human that is a Rakdos, one red, one black, one colorless. All right. And Crucius says this. He says, or they say, at the beginning of your end step, you may discard a card. If you do, create a treasure token because why not? Choose Ambitious or Expedient. If you choose Ambitious, seek a card with a greater mana value than the discarded card. If you choose Expedient, seek a card with lesser mana value than the discarded card. So typically what people do is they just discard lands and draw spells with them. And in other decks, like certain ones that I've been playing, you basically pitch extra Cruciuses and Fables and other stuff to go get stuff like Atraxa. And then you either put it in the graveyard or you cast it. Because most of your decks you're playing Crucius in, you're playing Gigantos. That's basically all the mid-range decks. They're all running Crucius. Goblins, Rakdos Goblins, some of them play Crucius. Rakdos mid-range plays Crucius. Jund plays Crucius with Jorseal. And the 5-color Niv Mizzet deck plays Crucius to fetch Atraxa. They don't even play... it's not called 5-color Niv anymore because they don't run Niv Mizzet anymore because Atraxa is just better. And it's called 5-color Domain because they're running 12 hard removal spells in because you have to kill Crucius. So 4 Fatal Push, 4 Lightning Helixes, and 4 Leyline Bindings that you can cast for 1 off of the treasure when you go search it up, when you pitch anything 3-drop or higher to go get Leyline Bindings. And that's the format. Like, yeah, there's like 20 decks, and there's probably more, but the tier 1 decks are just far and away better than anything else because especially the Black-Red X decks that play Crucius, they virtually do not run out of gas because Crucius refills it. And Crucius is not a busted magic card, but basically understand that how good Fable is, and then instead of thinking of resculpting your hand with 2 lands or 2 cards you don't need, nah, man, Crucius just says get what you want from the land. Because typically when you pitch the land, you're going to get something you need. Because you just need action. It doesn't matter what it is. You don't care because it's not a land. So it's like, oh, I get to go for the throat. Oh, I get Children's Assimilator. Oh, I get a Slimefoot. Oh, I get Atraxa. Oh, I get Leyline. Like, it's not a land. You don't care what it is. And then the other side of that is the combo decks, mainly Kethis, because it's the best combo deck and it's not even close. Kethis can kill you on an empty board on turn 3. It's that good. What I found that works the best against it is hard graveyard hate. But because they're playing Legends, they get to run good cards like lands. So they get to run Otawaras and Besajus because it's just free. Because they're already running blue and green stuff. So your hard graveyard hate needs to have it, like, I don't want to say continuous, but like Rest in Peace is one of the best cards I found against them. I guess License Hearse is also good, but we're not in a spot where Leyline of the Void is a thing because it's really the only graveyard deck that matters.
Okay.
And
I was going to ask just now if Graveyard Hate viable then as a response, but
it is because there are Reanimator decks that are classified as tier 1. I forgot about those too because they also run Crucius. So basically, that's why I said it's either you're playing Crucius, you're playing Kethis combo, or you're playing a deck that's running so much removal because you have to answer Crucius, and that's it. And when I started the seasonal reset, I started playing bad decks, and then I got to Plat 3 on some nonsense, and I was like, I'm going to take a tier 1 deck, and I'm just going to play it and actually learn the format. I played Affinity and went something like 9-10-1, and my only loss was to me being dumb. But the problem with Affinity and why it's not tier 1, it's probably like 1-5, is because there's 2 cards that just handily beat you. Brotherhood's End and Karn. So if that's really the only thing you're scared of, and your worst matchup is, I don't want to say your worst matchup, but one of your worst matchups is 5-color Niv or 5-color Domain. And basically that's your contentious point is, are you trying to beat 5-color? Are you trying to beat Rakdos or Red Black X? Or are you trying to beat Kethis? And basically you're trying to marry those 2 out of the 3 decks because you can't beat all of them. If you're good against Rakdos, you're probably not good against Niv. If you're good against Niv, you're probably not good against Crucius because you're not interacting enough. And then if you're good against one, you're probably not good against Kethis. I can't remember which one it is. So recently, Altheriax, MTG, posted a deck list that basically did what I was trying to do, except he did it better. And this deck list, I think, is probably going to finally get this stupid card nerfed. Because Crucius is busted. Basically, this is a Jund variant where you're playing Crucius and you're playing a new card from one of the commander sets, Slimefoot and Squee. Slimefoot and Squee is 1 Jund, which is 1 black, 1 green, 1 red. And it's a 3/3 legendary goblin. And when it enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 Sapperling token. Seems innocent, right? The problem is the other line of text, which is 1 colorless, 1 black, 1 green, 1 red. Sacrifice a Sapperling. Return Slimefoot and Squee and up to 1 other creature from your graveyard to the battlefield.
What?
Activate only as a sorcery. This card's busted.
Yeah, that's
this
busted.
Card's basically
dude.
better than this card. Listen, this card's better than Unburial Rites. All right. And what Alth is doing is he's just like, okay, I'm gonna go pitch Slimefoot and Squee, go get Atraxa, pitch Atraxa to anything, Crucius or whatever. You could still cast it off Giganta too. And then the turn that you untap, Mutavault is all creature types. So you activate Mutavault, turn it into a Sapperling, and then pay 4 with the treasure, and put Atraxa and Slimefoot into play. The game's over.
That's freaking broken.
Yeah, this deck's busted. And then the other card that's also very good is Shieldred's Assimilator. This card's also very good. This is all these cards I'm talking about besides Atraxa are alchemy cards. All right. Shieldred's Assimilator is a 3/1 Menace Phyrexian Horror, 1 black, 1 colorless. Has Menace. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may exile a target card from a graveyard. If a card is exiled this way, you may conjure a duplicate of that card into the top 5 cards of your library in any order, or at random, excuse me. So basically what this does is it's graveyard hate for your opponent, and it's a rebuy for your stuff. So like, for example, if somebody, this is like basically Thoughtseize and Inquisition Insulator. Do they take the Shieldred Assimilator, which is a 3/1 and it's annoying, or do they take the Crucius or Slimefoot? And if they do, you're like, all right, fine, I'll just put it back in my deck and draw it again. Like, this is the epitome of Jund, where it just basically grinds you out with the same cards until you run out of stuff, and then they kill you.
Wow.
I've played about 4 matches with it, and I've lost only once, and it was basically to me punting a bunch because mobile sucks. But you basically play a leaner curve than the 5-color deck does, and while you don't play as good as removal as they do, your mana is much cleaner, and you play a better Reanimator plan than everybody else does. And even if they do find a way to exile Atraxa, you can't get rid of this thing. Like, you can't get rid of Slimefoot, and you also have the Rakdos Fable Harvester plan. Oh, and by the way, you still have Mutavaults and Thoughtseizes and Fatal Pushes and, Go for the Throats, which should actually be, forgot, these are supposed to be Heartless X.
That is really crazy.
Yeah, this deck I think this is what finally is probably going to get Crucius nerfed.
You know what? I secretly hope so, because that card has had it coming. Like, people were complaining about Goblin Trap Finder for a long time there, but this card way worse.
So Goblin Trap Finder, interestingly enough, should have never been what it was, and it took them 6 more months to nerf it to the ground, which is still being used, by the way, and in all the Goblins decks, because it's still good. You just can't just do busted stuff with it with Altered Dimension and like all that other stuff that people were doing with it, right?
Of course.
So, like, Crucius is the problem card of the format because you don't have any of the good 1-mana removal outside of red or black that is not named Lightning Bolt or Fatal Push. And Lightning Bolt is not in the format. So you only
Not yet,
have...
anyway.
Right, you only have Push, and the only other 1-mana removal spell that you have at instant speed is Fragment Reality, and that's not very good against Crucius. So you basically are forced into either playing a bunch of 2-mana removal spells and basically just sit tapped on the draw, or you're playing basically Crucius decks and you're just searching for Fatal Push.
Wow. Well, thank you for reporting on this list. Are you going to be playing it this week? Or what
I
do you,
will be. I'm playing it tomorrow.
Okay, hell yeah. All right, that's it for the Rebelcast episode. This is 8. Yeah, episode 8. I'm gonna stop counting or even talking about that one lost episode. Episode 8. So we'll be back next week with even more breakdowns. Check us out Wednesday for the streamer showdowns from all of us at the Rebellion. Don't forget to untap, upkeep, resist.
Resist.
Let's go. All right. Peace out, everybody.